like what happened over there, how the crisis was handled afterwards. So that kind of led me into kind of like this big rabbit hole where I was like, okay, wow, even though you are in talent and culture, you can just do great stuff for this company and it can do something pivotal for the whole country. So here's what I'm most proud of. I independently shipped a fully automated HR portal using Claude Code. So what it does is that it just so that's what AI first actually looks like in practice. You're not just using GPT to write job descriptions. You're actually replacing infrastructure that offers from these really great
Yeah.
places. So they go there. So
Yeah.
the gap in there's a gap in visibility and confidence, not capability, right? But there are three things definitely, and I mean them all seriously. First, you need to build something real before you graduate, right? A
Ah.
project.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Campus to Career. This is your host, Mohammad Rasik Asgar. Today, we have with us Zoha Javaid, who is the global talent lead at ZAR, and she's a FAST and Beria University graduate. Right now, she's building AI first talent acquisition systems and understands exactly what you're going through when you're looking for a job in an AI driven world of today. Today, we'll talk about her journey so far, the good and bad things about recruiting and HR, and how AI is changing the game today. Let's hear from her directly. Hi, Zoha. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Welcome, Slam. It's actually great to be here. So, thank you for the intro, and I'll give you a little bit of an idea about myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I did my bachelor's from FAST, then I ended up doing my master's from Beria, and I did really well at both the places. So, that's something I'm very proud of.
Yeah.
And while I was working, I kind of kept gravitating towards, the organizational and the human side of the business. So, like, why do companies operate the way they do? What makes people stay? What makes people leave? And
Mhm.
how do teams actually perform well? So that kind of all led me to this journey in the HR, the talent and people culture domain. Yeah.
Hmm. So this was like almost like शुरू से ही आपका area of interest था because you were very interested towards this, right?
Yeah, so this is basically like in my bachelor's we had a case of Enron. So Enron is really famous because in financial crisis that happened back in I think the later 2000s, it had a big part to play. It was like chaos. I'm like, okay, how could like one company do so much damage? So I went there. So there was a lot of like financial stuff. I'm like, okay, so that's not my domain.
Okay.
Definitely, I'm not going there.
Hmm.
And then I kind of understood how the people were involved, like what happened over there, how the crisis was handled afterwards. So that kind of led me into kind of like this big rabbit hole where I was like, okay, man, like how can a company let all this happen? Where were the multiple other people who were involved?
Hmm.
And when I did my internship, I was at Jazz doing an internship, and that was also in the people and culture department. And then I kind of saw the insider view, and Jazz was like the biggest telco of the time and
Yeah.
still is. I'm like, okay, wow. So that pushed me there more and more. And then when I landed my role at SadaPay, I mean, I would say the most trending fintech of the time for Pakistan. It was like crazy to be there. I was very mesmerized by how it all works in a startup and how different it was from a very a legacy company. So all of that just kept pushing me in that direction.
So like for you specifically, there was no like pivotal moment कि अब से मैंने talent acquisition या HR वाली side पे जाना है या it was just something that you were more inclined towards from the start, right?
There was an inclination, 100%, but what pushed me there definitely was when I started working at SadaPay. I loved working so hands on.
Mm-hmm.
We were a smaller team, and our whole team worked really closely together, and we were hiring like fully international, right? You're talking to people from like different corners of the world who are working at these great companies you only heard of. Like we've all heard of like Delivery Hero,
Hmm.
Klarna, Revolut, and all of that, and you're trying to get people from those
Yeah.
companies for a company in Pakistan, and that's doing something new for the first time. So
Hmm.
I was like, okay, wow, even though you are in talent and culture, you can just do great stuff for this company and it can do something pivotal for the whole country as a whole. So that was, I would say, that was like a pivotal moment where I'm like, okay, I'm happy here. This is interesting.
So basically, the level of impact that you were
Yeah.
creating, I think that drove you, towards this. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. And how did you like find because I know कि HR के अंदर there are multiple domains as well,
Yeah.
right? There's branding, there's I think
Hmm.
talent acquisition, then there's technical recruitment as well. And I had this conversation with other guests as well previously about it, but I want to know about your opinion. Okay, why exactly towards the talent acquisition side rather than the other things that are within the domain of HR as well.
So I was more interested in the people that shape the company. And you could that's the like the very first basis. Like HR has definitely so many domains, training, benefits, everything's there. But I'm like, how you can shape a company is the type of people you hire, the type of people you find, understanding those requirements. So that was kind of interesting always for me. So and then when I ended up there, I started liking it more
Hmm.
rather than being aversive from it, because it can like people when you talk to people, they would be like, okay, kind of gets redundant, you're looking for the same people over and over again. But I never really went to that point where I'm like, okay, this is boring. It was always interesting because the roles were frankly the roles were really fun,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
just have so much exposure to work around so many different countries, companies, and all of that. So again, I would say that kind of just the flow just led me there, but I would say my interest was always there as well.
Okay. So, like, Zoha, imagine yourself, you're back in 2020, 2021. I think that was the time you sort of graduated, if I'm not wrong. So, in that time, like, what was the Zoha of at that time, like, thinking, okay, what is my next step? And, can you, like, walk us through, like, company to company, कि आपने exactly कौन सी companies
Yeah.
में done you worked?
So I think I started my first job in 2022, if I'm
Okay.
not wrong. Yeah, it was 2022. So it was like almost after COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I started working, that was back in S&P Global. I started with this small role of being a client associate product, and that was again interesting. But I was like, okay, this is not really my domain.
Hmm.
I understood it. I got it. I was definitely. It was definitely not my domain because I'm like, okay, it's fun. Again, still working globally, great company to be at, etc. But then I saw this opening at SadaPay, and frankly, like they reached out to me. It was interesting. I was like, okay, because of course it's a starting role. I was working as a recruiting coordinator. They just needed someone to do the basics and whatnot. And when I joined, of course, I took my time to learn. I understood in the very start what I was doing was that I started coordinating interviews, then grew into full cycle sourcing, then into running multi-regional tech hiring. So it just moved from a coordinator to a talent specialist, then a talent specialist two, etc., etc. So after SadaPay, I ended up at another startup. And SadaPay was venture backed. The other startup, Jillion, was bootstrapped. So bootstrapped company is very different from a venture backed
Yeah.
company because over there you've got your investors, whatnot. Bootstrapped, it's like the founder, owner, everything is being backed by this one party.
Yeah.
So decisions are made in a very different level. So Jillian, again, the ground, I would say the playing field was again the same, similar, I would say. We were again hiring internationally. The product was different, definitely. The team was different. The people I was working with were different. And again, I'm like, okay, so the scope grew definitely. Well, how much I had to do grew as well. And I kind of inherited a process where things were a little slow, but then I took them from average time to hire of like maybe I think it was 8 weeks, and then we took it to just like 1 week. We pushed everything to move faster. So yeah, and then from Jillian, I ended up at Zar, and Zar again. So it was similar to Jillian in the sense that we didn't have anything. There was no
Yeah.
groundworks. We have to build everything from scratch. I think I was very one of the few founding members, you could say, because we were like what 7, 8 people, and they're like, okay, yeah, we're getting more people, of course, because again had a good reputation. It was something very interesting that they're doing. So that's just how things went.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned about the differences between bootstrapped startups and the venture backed one. I think for the audience, like, could you like elaborate? Is this something that you learned on the go? या आपको थोड़ी बहुत understanding थी about how startups work, and also
Hmm.
you mentioned like SadaPay में भी and Zar में भी very small team, बिल्कुल founding
Hmm.
team and whatnot. Um, what was that like from a traditional sort of role, let's say at a bigger company at S&P, for example?
I think like if someone is actually moving from a traditional company, there's like a lot of levels to how decisions are made. There's like
Correct.
the hierarchy is very expansive. It's very wide. There's a million people in the process. At SadaPay, we were a team of, I think, 4 to 5 people. 4 people, yeah, we were 4 people.
Hmm.
It's a very tiny, tiny team. We worked together. Decisions were made literally on the go.
Hmm.
Everyone's on the Slack channel. We're checking in with the CTO, checking with the CEO. You're speaking to everyone, right? You're like, okay, you need something. Literally, go approach the guy. He's right there. Work on it. Get it out of the way. And that was actually fine. That's something I prefer rather than I send an email and I wait for a
Yeah.
while for first approval, the second approval. Of course, those companies have their own way of working that suits them, works fine. But in startups, things are faster and it works well because you've got your timelines. You're pushing something new into the world rather than just maintaining something that's been built. So that was the case at Jillion. We were a team of 2 people, so again smaller,
Small enough. Yeah.
smaller and smaller. At Czar, I was the only person in HR.
Yeah.
So I think gradually we're just moving away from
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it works because it's not like we're managing a team of hundreds of people. So Adapay was much bigger, very, very big team. We needed more people. Jillian was, I would say, like half the size of Adapay, and at Zar, we're even smaller,
Yeah.
but it works. That's the whole point. I'm like, it just works. That's why we're using that for us because
Mhm.
it's just something that works well for us.
Okay, interesting. So I'm just gonna shift the conversation a bit to something that's very relevant in today's world. I know for a fact that ZAR is actually known in the market for being AI first. They're adopting
Mm,
a lot of practices that
mm,
are AI first,
mm.
especially since the last 6 7 months.
Yeah.
How has your role sort of changed? Because you have been in sort of that bilkul on the forefront of everything
Yeah.
that's happening, right? How has things changed in your sort of domain, and overall, in how do you see it changing in the talent slash HR domain?
Hmm. So, definitely, it's very impactful. Definitely, it's changed things. I mean, I built things. I don't just manage them anymore. Zara is backed by some very crazy investors. They're really good, like A16Z, Dragonfly, Bonic, etc. So they do expect some very serious infrastructure. And when I joined back in 2024, we didn't have any function. We had nothing, obviously,
Yeah.
zero. So, and that's very much in line with how startups work. So I built it from scratch. At first, at that time, we were going towards the whole AI thing. We had like normal policies, interview loops, frameworks, recruitment tooling, the whole thing really. But then as we shifted, I shifted my approach as well. I started using Claude Code, understanding it because for us it's new. For people non-tech, it's
Correct.
definitely new. There's
Correct.
shortcuts. There's so much it can like. It's beyond what we think can happen using just this tool on your screen and just talking to it. So here's what I'm most proud of. I independently shipped a fully automated HR portal using Claude Code. So what it does is that it just manages everything. It's like a one-stop shop for HR. You have your policies there. You can use it for investments. You can use it to kind of just log some time off if you want to.
Nice.
Anything there. So like anything and everything, it's right there. Interact with it. It's there for you.
Hmm.
So and I was able to build that with zero engineering support. So I'm like,
Excellent. Yeah.
okay, that was very fun and interesting. I mean, you test with it and it just works your way. And at times it's not working. You literally tell it, okay, fix it. It'll probably take
Yeah.
time and
Yeah.
kind of fix it.
Yeah.
So it just depends upon the type of tools. And we're also using Rube. Rube is a really good MCP. You can use it to build different cross-platform automations. Like you can integrate your calendars, you can integrate your Google Sheets and whatnot. And what it does is that it streamlines recruitment workflows. Well, like it can help you cut out outreach time because it can automate those things for you.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
that's that. And then I built an AI onboarding agent. It's
Yeah.
something really, really cool, really fun to work with. So I'm sure you've noticed as well that when you join a company, you have like a full day for like
Correct.
orientation and
Correct.
onboarding. And at times you're a little lost because there's so much
So much.
information you
Yeah.
have to absorb. You have to sit through so many of these calls that you're like, okay, let's, introduce you to marketing, creative, blah, blah,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, exactly. So now what we've done is that we've got this onboarding agent. You interact with it, it onboards you in like 30 minutes. You're not wasting a full day. You give it all the information. It of course it there is the human touch as well because we already do send them a welcome email, etc. Teach them, okay, this is how you're going to use it. And then the agent is going to talk to them, walk them through the whole process, and it also sets you up with a nice coffee chat for someone working closely in your team. So you're looking forward to something on your first day.
Yeah.
You've spoken to it, you're done with everything. Okay, log in here, log in there, put your information, like
Hmm.
everything, you're done. So that's what AI first actually looks like in practice. You're not just using GPT to write job descriptions, you're actually replacing infrastructure that would otherwise require a full engineering team.
So basically, all the steps that you saw, or maybe thought that these aren't necessary, automatically, they are either condensed or they are cut off from the process, right? Just to make sure that the, let's say, if we're talking about the onboarding, I know
Mhm.
for a fact that, by the way, just for the audience, that what Zoha is mentioning, the 1 day sort of onboarding thing, again, this is just in startups. In the bigger organizations, it can take up to a week or maybe a month even to, onboard a new employee. And that is why generally, organizations get frustrated when somebody resigns after a month or so, because it takes a lot of effort and whatnot. So what Zoha is basically saying is that the entire 30-day thing or a 1 week thing, it is condensed into a 30-minute sort of process, which is amazing, honestly. And from the candidate side, they are just, they just have to get going from the word go. So I think that's amazing. But did you like condense all of this, or you thought that these are some extra steps that we want to trim out? What was the thought process in that?
I think my main thought process was how to optimize it. Like,
Mm.
how can I fix this in a way that even someone who's joining has that excitement? If
Yeah.
they have someone to interact with, they put in all their information, nothing is left out, and their time is not being wasted. They can rather use that time to actually understand the business rather than doing some random ops work that, okay, add your bank details, add these details or those details and whatnot, because all those things are required. So the whole point was that, okay, I need to find a way to just optimize this like crazy, go from zero to like 100. So that's what kind of pushed me there. And we didn't really trim out anything, frankly. You still get to have you still get to be aligned with a buddy. They're going to walk you through your process. You still get to add in all your information in the company index, add some cute info like, okay, my bucket
Yeah.
list, what do I want to do, where do I want to work. You still get to add your bank info because of course we need that. Then anything other that might be ops related, you do that, but then you just feed it to Arlo. Arlo's our agent's name. You
Uh,
give that the information, you raise a PR, and then it's just added. So you don't have to manually do anything. You're just literally talking to this machine that's like, okay, add this, add that, do this for me, do that for me, etc., and you're done,
mm.
right? Instead that you go on different tabs, you log in, you're like, okay, I need to put this bit of information here, that bit of information over there. So it cuts all of the noise out, and you just get right to it rather.
Nice. And can you imagine, like, a year ago or something, would you be in this sort of space where you would even say things like, let's say, PR repository, GitHub, whatnot, and now, mashallah, you're working on that and shipping out stuff. Do you think now, for the non-tech folks, right? It could be like operation CX, it could be HR, any other, things that were traditionally non-tech. Do you think that that AI is now something जिसकी वजह से people might say कि अब आपके पास कोई बहाना नहीं रहा, right, to say
Yeah.
that this is too technical for me? Is that so?
I think to some extent it depends upon if you're individually going buying a subscription, it's going to be very expensive for you. It depends upon to what extent your company is involved in those things,
Mm.
where you're working, whatnot. I think if you're a student and you're non-tech, you could learn about this in theory, and if you have maybe some savings, you could do maybe a 1 month subscription to
Yeah.
understand it.
Yeah.
But then if you're not practicing every day, you might kind of just simply forget because you're just not practicing after a
Mm.
while. So it does depend upon the type of facilitations you have, the type of company you're working in, the stage you're at. Some companies are AI aversive. They're not using it. They don't need to right now. Maybe it's not a business need, whatever their reasoning is. So over there, if you're learning, yes, you're equipping yourself for maybe a better or a different role that might help you. But again, it depends upon that if you have the availability of the tool and if you can frankly afford it, because these tools
Yeah,
are
are expensive. Yeah.
expensive.
And do you think, like, from a fresh graduate's perspective, is this something that is slowly becoming a necessity or has become a necessity in today's world?
I think to a great deal it has become a necessity. And the type of companies you want to be at, like what you aspire to be, for tech, 100% it's a necessity. For non tech, even, I would say it is a necessity. Again, depending upon the type of workplace you're looking at. If you're looking at your general companies or like your agency, your basic like big telcos and whatnot, all of that, then maybe to a great extent it's not there. Maybe they're just like using GPTs and whatnot to maybe optimize their writing and what and all of that. But again, as I'm not there, but as I see from the news and
Yeah,
whatnot,
yeah.
I think it's going to be a necessity to a great deal, because the basic things you could do, you could hire someone before maybe to write job descriptions or to kind of just fix workflows, whatnot. I'm sure companies would be like, okay, you know what, why don't we just have like a very basic GPT subscription and just
Correct.
write
Yeah.
JDs from there.
Yeah. Okay. And when like at ZAR, you mentioned that you were seeing this sort of transition happening live, and then obviously you were hands on to it. So when this transition was happening, did that make you nervous or did that excite you? Because I know like there are a lot of folks out there who are like, अगर मैं अपनी example दूँ, I delayed a lot in learning AI because I thought that this was just a bubble, it's gonna burst and whatnot. And maybe to some extent, I may be right in the future. I'm not saying that, but again, in today's world, it's necessary, right? So
Mm.
when I started to work on that, I was like, oh my god, I'm missing out on a lot of things. And just imagine if I were to delay this a little bit more, it would have made me more anxious, I guess.
Yeah.
So when you were in this stage, was it like anxious? Was
Mm.
it like, were you nervous or were you excited that, okay, this is something that I'm going to learn? And how should one approach this as well?
So I would say I had a mix, because I was very excited to learn it because I wanted to. I was like, okay, this is something new. It's intriguing, and frankly, I do get intrigued by everything that happens in tech because I get too involved in what our product is,
Yeah.
how is it making. And that's just like kind of how I work. So, but definitely anxious as well, because you're like, okay, I've got to learn this, need to understand. But our process was made a little easier because we did have a training. We hired a trainer who gave the non-tech folks, because of course we haven't been working with this. We don't
Yeah.
know terminologies. We could, yes, we could definitely all go and Google it, but we do need someone to walk us through it and help us when we're kind of just stuck. So we did have a training that definitely helped everyone, at least got us through the door, got us through the basics. So that helped. So yeah, definitely. And I think anyone who's approaching it, approach it with caution and excitement, learn it, be excited, because it is new. And definitely, yeah, the AI bubble might burst in the future, but I think till that time a lot of changes would already be made
Exactly. Yeah.
to your existential processes, that it would be like a necessity at a certain level. And beyond that, of course, it's the human thing. So you need to approach it with excitement. And if you're afraid, just kind of watch YouTube videos. YouTube is your happy learning tool. It's right
Yeah.
there. Watch them, interact with someone who actually knows how to use it. And they might help you, they might not. You might find someone else. So just kind of try. Don't be too wary, because if you're going to be afraid, in the end, like someone else who's learned it will just kind of move forward. And sadly, you would just be just sitting over there. You're just going to be
Yeah.
sad about
Yeah.
it, right? So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So a $1 million question is like, AI gonna sort of replace HR roles, tech roles?
Yeah, I know. It's such a debate. It is such a debate. Like I see this as well, and I think both. Honestly, I think I could say from direct experience, not theory, to some extent. Like I would say, it would condense teams. When there were like
Mm.
10 people who needed to do a job, it would condense it to maybe 5 people or even four, depending upon to what extent like the company optimizes things. So I think definitely you're not going to need a team of like 15 people who are working in HR. You could have Claude Code running like 10 different agents. One is taking care of benefits, one is taking care of training, whatnot. But you would need one or two humans in the process. It's going to replace to an extent, but not 100%. You would definitely need the human aspect, right? So I'll give you a bit of an example. Like SadaPay, I was doing things that were very manual that I can just kind of automate now in minutes. The repetitive work environment of recruitment, like initial outreach, maybe scheduling, status updates, your entries in your ATS like greenhouse, Ashby, whatnot, pipeline tracking, all of that can be done now in minutes. You can just go to your agent or your assistant, be like, okay, what's the pipeline looking like today? So you don't need a manual sheet. Your agent's connected. It can tell you everything. So, but then it kind of pushes you to look at things beyond now.
Yeah.
You could make infrastructures, but it's not going to remove you entirely. It's going to help you, but the teams will condense. Definitely some people would lose their jobs, that's true, that's 100%. But maybe they would, hopefully they find better options. That's the one thing a person can say. But I think it would be very negligent to say that no, it's not going to impact at all. I
Mm.
think everyone has seen so far the teams, even engineers, are being replaced by AI. So then they were like 10 engineers working, now they just need maybe 8. They're like, okay, these two guys, we don't need them anymore, we're going to work with some other different tool that's going around.
Okay, interesting. All right. So, I think from a candidate's perspective, like somebody who is now graduating, in
Hmm.
today's world, or who has graduated or is looking for a job, um, what sort of, first of all, I'd like to know, like, what are the mistakes that candidates make in today's sort of applying for roles? Because I know that there is a lot of roles that are AI screened, that have to go through an ATS,
Hmm.
and they should be ATS optimized or whatever. So what are the mistakes that they're making today? Why are they not landing the roles that they want to land?
Yeah, that's a good one actually. So what people are doing is that they're writing for humans when the first reader is your machine. It's your AI screening tools. And I've used Greenhouse, Ashby, Juicebox, all these other tools, right, for scanning. So what they do is they help you with keyword density, role alignment, structured signal. They're not reading your personality between the lines. It's I see incredibly talented people, and they become invisible because their CV is not formatted in a way that can go through the phrasing systems, that can describe their work. It's all very vague. It doesn't match the JD, and that's not what this AI or the tool is looking for. So managed recruitment is a noise. You need to reducing time to hire from 8 weeks to 10 business days by redesigning interview process and integrating a new ATS. That's a signal. So if someone is writing, hey, I worked on a XYZ, and this other guy has written that I worked on this, then this was the impact, this is how much I cut back on, this is how much it benefited the business. So these things are like signals for the AI to work on.
Mhm.
And what people do is that they just kind of use one resume and apply everywhere with it. So
Yeah.
you should not do that.
Mhm.
You need to tailor it. The JD is right there. And if you've done the work, why not show it, flaunt it, put it right there in your resume so it's picked up. And I think they like if there's literal bullet points, must have worked on this, should have this, and if you have it, put it right there in those exact words,
Mhm.
because the AI tool is gonna screen for those things. So it makes the job of the machine trivially easy if it's right there, and it will pass through. And when the actual human behind it looks at all of this, then your actual impact can be seen as well. So that's the basic mistake. You're not putting the right words. You're writing for a person, and even at times, if you're working at legacy companies, there's so much volume. There's like 300, 500 resumes, and they're looking through it. So even the
Yeah.
person is like skimming, and if they see the right word, they'll stop. And the right word is what they see in the JD as well. So just use that and make your make your resume according to what the job is asking for.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on portfolios? Because honestly, I saw your portfolio and then I made my portfolio. So, matlab, it was nice from an experience point of view, but I still don't know whether it's effective or not because I haven't done that. But what are your thoughts from an HR perspective?
I think because I think your work should be highlighted. I think so. And if someone's maybe just kind of visiting your LinkedIn profile and your portfolio is there, they might just kind of click it out curiosity that, oh, okay, this
Yeah.
person's non-tech. They're not a designer. They're not creative. So like normally when you hear the word portfolio, you think, okay, design,
Hmm.
creative,
Exactly.
architecture, anything like that. So they might just click it out of curiosity, and they see that it's literally right there that you've built this yourself. That shows you've got technical expertise, right? That shows that you actually took out the time to invest in something of your own. You made something, and it shows your work right there. And even if the person scrolls through your work, your impact, it's right there. So it helps you because it's genuinely like some titles are very obvious. Like for example, if I'm like, I just put my title global talent lead, it sounds like any other HR title, but your portfolio tells a very different story.
Hmm.
That I built a full stack portal, it's right there. That I designed automation system, it's right there. And I think about talent, and your personal statements are also there. So all that helps. And honestly, I practice what I preach. So I tell every candidate I work with that your digital presence is very important for your application. And I think it's important that I hold the same standard for myself. And especially for fresh grads, they need to work on their LinkedIns. then it doesn't need to be like dead. You need to talk about good things, especially your field. Talk about it. Maybe you read an article, maybe you saw something. It just shows your interest that you're actually learning, especially because you're new in the field, right? So it makes more sense that you have a digital presence. Portfolios will help. Posting on LinkedIn, relevant content on LinkedIn will help. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So since you touched upon LinkedIn, I want to know your thoughts on personal branding. I know, like from 4 or 5 years ago, it started to become very important from a fresh grad perspective. How is it in today's world? Like, where does it stand in terms of somebody landing, the probability of them landing a job or landing a client or something?
I think it's just increased over. I'll give you an example. I think you guys also had, if I'm not mistaken, I think you already had one of our designers, Shoaib, on the podcast as well.
Yeah.
So back at Saturday, when we were hiring Shoaib, we saw his LinkedIn, and the guy was so active, and not just random active. He had good things to say about design. Like he would share what he's doing in design, and at that time, I think he was relatively new as well. So I think so, if I'm not wrong. And it really helped because, like, the things that, like, you would normally call a candidate and be like, okay, have you
Yeah.
done this, have you
Yeah.
done that?
Yeah.
All of that, all his work spoke for itself. It was right there. And for so many other people, especially if you're working in fields that require virtual presence, creative, um, branding, design, product management, even as an engineering, of course. And even if you're non-tech, post about the things that you've done better, how you've improved them. Maybe read a good article, learn about it, post about its findings, that okay, you read it, this happened, that happened. All of that will help you, definitely help you. It will build your personal brand. It will give you an outreach. So it's much like how Instagram works, right? It's going to increase your outreach. So have a presence, it will help you.
And is it like specific to startups only, or generally like across
I
any
would say
organization?
I would say generally about any organization, because it's going to help you in the end, right? Your LinkedIn is your own personal property. You don't have to just post about how great your organization is. You can just talk about your work, right?
Hmm.
And that would help you. That would definitely help you.
And any tips for how somebody could start today? Because I genuinely feel like that if you're making a LinkedIn today, you're already too late.
Hmm.
But at least they are starting, right?
Hmm.
So what are some of the things that they can do to sort of, just off the bat, it's necessary to
Hmm.
do all of those? What are those things?
Hmm. Yeah, I think first people need to get it out of their mind that the persistent misconception that personal branding is for just influencers or senior executives. It's not. The world is changing. Online is how you get found, how you get trusted, how you get opportunities, and so certain opportunities are not posted publicly. Some of the best opportunities, some of the candidates that came our way, we were just like, you're just going on LinkedIn, you see this person's work, and you're like, okay, what are they doing? What are they working on? It helps. If so the whole thing is not to be too sad and not to be too down in the dumps. You can take your time, cry about it, but move on. At least try. Go on LinkedIn, make a decent profile, put a decent picture, right? It's not Instagram, it's professional, right? So keep it that way. Write about what intrigues you in terms of your field of work, not just life as a whole. Like things that are relevant to your work. And again, be consistent. You don't have to post like crazy. It's LinkedIn, not Instagram. So you can just post at times, talk about your work, reach out to people, maybe like, and if you think someone's doing great work as a candidate, as a fresh grad, you can just kind of reach out to them with a kudos that, hey, I read through this, it was really great, it was nice, I would like to learn more from you. And there's so many people actually on LinkedIn who might teach you. Some might ignore you, that's true.
Yeah.
Some might just be like, okay, but like, why are you here? But there are some people who would be genuinely happy that their work is appreciated, and they might give you a few helpful tips as well. So as a fresh grad, sadly, you have to go through so much to kind of go through the point where you're like, okay, now I've earned it, I can do
Hmm.
this on my own.
Hmm.
So just try different things till something sticks.
So I think being creative now is very, very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. All right. We're sort of going into another section of this sort of episode. It's called the rapid fire round. It's basically, I'm going to give you a couple of options, and just going to choose from that based on your experience and how you see, things happening around you. And if you want, you can elaborate a bit, but it's usually supposed to be just rapid fire. Okay.
Okay.
But if you feel like that you need a couple of minutes to just elaborate on your point, you can do that, no worries.
Perfect.
I'll just start. Um, from an HR's perspective, hiring for potential or hiring for proven track record, which works better in, let's say, a global market?
This is a question I'm going to have to explain.
Okay.
So I think hiring for potential, but again, your development infrastructure is something that needs to be real. In a global market, proven track records are very expensive and rare. So again, depends upon the level of hiring that you're doing. If you're hiring for like executives and whatnot, you of course you can't hire for just potential. You need track records.
Yeah.
So it depends upon the role, depends upon the hire. So mostly I would say hire for trajectory, not just tenure. So someone like how well they've done and all of that. So yeah.
Okay. What's the future of talent acquisition according to you? Like, is it going to be focused on remote global talent or local hiring?
Um, Global, 100%. Remote global, without a question. We've filled roles like crazy all over the world. So yes.
Okay. And recruitment, do you see that automating in the future, or do you prefer keeping the human touch?
It's going to be a mix. You're going to have you are going to be forced to automate, or you're going to be left behind, sadly. But you need the human touch definitely, because you could do all of that, but in the end, the human touch needs to be there to read through the nuance, to just I know understand if this person actually fits.
Okay. And for someone starting off, which side in HR should they, let's say, focus on? Is it going to be HR operations or talent strategy, according to you?
If they're aiming to go for talent, right, that's where the interest lies, then you need to do talent strategy, but your operations need to have, they need a very solid foundation. If you built from zero twice, strategy built on broken operation is just going to break.
Okay.
So you need to have solid operations.
All right. And which gives better foundation, which gives you more exposure? Is it corporate HR or HR in a startup?
I'm going to be a little biased and say startup HR, because
Mhm.
corporate can kind of keep you a little closeted in whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Startup gives you a lot of exposure.
Okay. And in today's world, should someone learn AI tools first or
Mm.
master people skills?
Mm, you're going to have to do both. Sorry, can't pick one, because if you have AI tools and you're thinking of working in talent and culture and you've got like zero people skills, you're not going to go far.
Yeah.
And exactly. So you need to kind of take both hand in hand.
Okay. And should one specialized in one, let's say, in industry, or being a generalist HR professional is more helpful or rewarding?
Mm, if you're starting up, then you need to be a generalist first, and then you specialize by design. I came up across tech, then moved to fintech, and now Web3. So at the very start, you can't be generalized. Sorry, you can't be specialized. You need to be in a more generalized stream, and then move forward.
Okay. And for someone who are looking for is looking for talent, like from a talent acquisition point of view, um, personal branding or perfect resume, what matters more?
I would say personal brand would matter, definitely, because before someone reaches out to you, they would look at your LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
If your LinkedIn is good, they would be forced to look at your resume.
Hmm.
So, like your personal brand can do a little bit of heavy lifting for you if your resume is a little weak.
And I think you mentioned the example of Suhaib as well. I think that's a
Exactly.
very relevant example of what you
Yeah.
faced as well. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Um, Staying in one company long term or job hopping, from a growth perspective purely, what's realistic, or what should one do?
I would say you should not be leaving a company after like every few months, or every like just you're just there for a year and leave, because look, it's gonna take you some time to learn. You learn that, you start working, and for impact, it's gonna take you a few months. So I would definitely not encourage people staying at companies for like tens of years, of course, but don't be leaving after every few months. So SadaPay taught me process, for example. Jillion taught me global scale under constraint. Zara is where I'm building something with AI. So each company will teach you something new. It needs to be intentional, but you do need to stay long enough to have a real outcome. You can't just like I don't think it's possible that you're learning everything so fast and you've done impact everything and you're just like, okay, I'm gone.
Hmm.
But again, it would depend upon someone's personal circumstances. But if we look at it in a very idealistic situation, it's better to take some time, learn, and then move on to an opportunity that you're like, okay, this aligns more with me.
So there's no like number exactly per se that you should do like 2 years on the trot or 5 years on the trot or something.
I think somewhere between 2 to 3 years you should be staying in a company to understand to stay long enough, because like after a year, some companies have, like a basic example, some companies have an annual appraisal, some have biannual appraisals. So you're not going to have growth in a company. You won't be able to prove that, hey, I did so well that I had a lot of growth at this company.
Yeah.
So if you're just leaving within a year, you're not going to be able to show that. So you need to stay a while. I would say maybe 2 to 3 years is a good option.
Okay, interesting. And now moving towards the last part of
Hmm.
the conversation we're having, I want to know, like I'm genuinely someone who's very interested in this
Hmm.
question that I'm about to ask, is like, according to you, sitting at a global stage right now, you have had exposure with different companies, also different
Hmm.
people, different founders as well. What observations about the Pakistani talent market
Hmm.
um, do you have, and what are some things that people often overlook when it comes to Pakistani talent, and that might surprise them
Hmm.
in a sort of a global setting?
Yeah, I second you on that, because I think people do feel some, like if you talk to someone internationally, they might not know that the depth of technical talent that is in Pakistan is generally underestimated. We have a lot of talented people. So when I'm hiring different across, say, blockchain engineers, Flutter, DevOps, or anything across different companies, Pakistanis candidates can definitely compete at the same level as candidates at other companies. And you would see now a lot of our candidates who work at companies here, and then they get offers from these really great
Yeah.
places, so they go there. So
Yeah.
there's a gap in visibility and confidence, not capability. People genuinely prefer certain markets because they're like, okay, we could hire people because of the cost. They're like, in cost, terms of cost comparisons, we should hire from there. But the framing is very outdated and frankly undersells what we have here. The professionals I've hired from Pakistan are definitely very great. They're good, not because they're cheap, nothing like that. That distinction matters. The global market is slowly catching up to that reality.
Hmm.
And it surprises people the level at which people are upskilling in Pakistan. The engineers are doing really well,
Yeah.
tech professionals are doing really well. But again, it depends upon the type of exposure the guys get, the people get. And we do have certain limitations that we don't have a lot of product based companies, so people are not very familiar that this is how you work when it's just like a SaaS product or just a very different or sort of maybe fintech product.
Hmm.
So that gap kind of forces them to in a little box where only a certain people know these things. So hopefully as we get more companies, more development in these things, the people have the skill. And when I say guys, I mean both, like
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
gender,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you have the skill, they have the skill. They just need the opportunity to kind of implement it. And when it comes their way, they can prove it. We've got great people.
And do you think like this opportunity is not as vast today as it should be? Like, um, from a person who's seeking a job, are there opportunities out there for Pakistani professionals? How frequent are they? Because I know that, like, purely from a financial perspective, the biggest advantage that somebody gets working in a global company that pays is in dollars, right?
Yeah.
Is the national exchequer, the exchange rate that you get. It's naturally, obviously, it puts you way ahead
Hmm.
from what the local market is offering. So, are there opportunities in today's world? Are there frequent opportunities, or do you think that we're still not at a point where Pakistanis are getting a lot of opportunities?
I would say that tech folks are. When you're in tech, there are many, many, many more opportunities. For non-tech, sadly, yes, the opportunities are limited because I think, and I've actually seen this in practice. There are a lot of different companies. They have an allowance to hire for tech talent
Hmm.
internationally, but for
Yeah.
non-tech, it's kind of mandated that now, no, you can't hire
Hmm.
outside nationals. You need to have your own country's nationals. So that kind of, for non-tech, it's sadly a bad news. But for tech, there is a lot of companies. There are a lot of companies that are hiring from Pakistan. Again, they might think it's the cost arbitrage,
Yeah.
but actually, a lot of people are actually understanding that there's a genuine talent hub here that's just waiting to be tapped, and it's helping.
I've always been curious, like, why are the tech people getting advantage over the non-tech folks? Is it a geographical constraint on their end, or is it a talent issue? Is it something that they are mandated to do? Like, for example, if somebody is, let's say, a compliance analyst, let's say, right? and they're sitting in Pakistan. They don't get as many opportunities as, let's say, a software engineer would abroad. So is it like, from the company's point of view, is it like a geographical constraint, like you mentioned that they have this specific budget and whatnot, or is it just generally this conception right now in the daily, like in the world or globally as well, that tech is more important to us than, let's say, non-tech?
To a great deal, I think it's the value you bring to a business. Some people, some companies have that, their tech function has, it's bringing them more value because they're kind of driving the finance, right? Then the rest are your support functions. But then if you look at compliance, finance, these other functions, maybe there's great opportunities for them as well. But to some extent, what I've seen is that for companies look at tech as something that drives that value. So they're like, okay, if there's great talent in maybe North America, let's go get it. It's fine. But because maybe the type of work that person can do, the skill set they have, you might not find it. And that at times is the case. You're not able to
Yeah.
find that skill set. You're like, okay, man, we cannot find anyone in this country who can do that. And that is the case at times. That's why there are some creme of the creme
Mhm.
that's just somewhere else. For non-tech, sadly, what happens is that some work is not what another person cannot do. You
Okay.
can find someone with the same skill set much
Mm.
easier. So that's why, sadly, that's the case over there. So it depends upon the type of value you bring to the business and the type of demand is there for the business. Maybe for compliance, legal, and all of that, there is a greater demand. But for purely ops and all, maybe there isn't. So far, that has been the
Okay.
case.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Last question, Zoha. Any piece of advice for the the fresh graduates today? What should they be doing, according to your observations? How can they be like one step ahead all the time? I know they can't beat technology right now, but at least from the rest of the pool, what can they do to make themselves stand out? And is it also a reality that they need to be a lot creative? They need to be a lot faster now, in today's world, than, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago?
I think I don't. I think we don't need to be afraid. Like you have to try, but there are three things definitely, and I mean them all seriously. First, you need to build something real before you graduate, right? A
Ah,
project, a tool, a process, something you shipped, something you did, right? Credentials are table stakes now, so there needs to be something of actual true value that you've done. What differentiates you is the evidence of what you can actually do, because there's going to be so many people graduating with you, right? Your degree will tell me what you can learn. Your portfolio will tell someone that you can execute this as well. There's going to be like hundreds of people graduating with the same degree, but your portfolio will definitely show that, okay, this person really stands out because they've done maybe, and it doesn't have to be really really great, because they know that this is a fresh grad. They know what to
yeah,
expect from
exactly.
fresh
Yeah.
grads. It could be something small you did, but you did it. You put it out there. You at least tried. Then you need to make your work visible when you are in university. Make your LinkedIn from there. Document what you're learning. Maybe you did an internship. Maybe you led a whole activity or a campaign.
Yeah.
Maybe you did some fundraising. Even it's small. All of these show initiative that you can do something. These show your leadership skills. These show your design skills. You made something. It was there. Maybe it could even be like something really small as that. Led a charity. We raised these much
Yeah.
funds.
Yeah.
All of those show initiative. So the Pakistani talent that gets picked up by global companies isn't always the most qualified at times. It's the most visible as well, because recruiters are going online. They're looking at, okay, they're putting their filters, whatnot, and LinkedIn is giving them these people that just come up. And you're coming up because you're relevant. You're doing something, so that will help you. Definitely do that. And last would be, don't wait for the perfect opportunity. It is a little sad, but because you're going to apply for so many things and you might get a call from like two places, don't get disheartened by that. It takes time. It will definitely do so. So just learn, try, keep a track, and you're going to have to touch up your resume according to the job you're
Yeah.
applying for.
Yeah.
Don't be like, okay, I'm just gonna like throw the same one everywhere. You can't do that. Take out some time. And now we have GPT, right? Everyone's using it. So use it, rewrite your JD, tweak it a little bit, and then send it. And then maybe reach out to people on LinkedIn, send them a request that, hey, I've applied for this. Sometimes people will see it, sometimes they won't, but it might help you, right? So there's no harm in trying.
Judging from what all of the things that you said, I'm sort of thanking myself that thank God I'm not a fresh graduate today. There's a lot of things that you have to do, but yeah, but that's the reality, I guess. And I think with you today, um, shed a lot of light on, or opened my eyes at least to what today's world actually is from a recruiter's perspective. Like, things have changed unimaginably, like in just amount of 2 years, 3 years, or let's say if we were talking to when we graduated. So that's so true, and I'm so thankful to you for taking out the time today, because I genuinely feel like that if people listen to this, whoever is listening to this, I'm sure that they'll get a lot of insights from this. So thank you so much, Zoha. Thank you for your time, and inshallah speak to you soon as well.
Thank you for inviting me. Bye bye.
Bye.